The show is Chi Talks, where it's all about the energy. If everything is made of energy, then we have a lot to discuss. Let's bring in the co-hosts for today.
Good morning, Javi.
Good morning,
Good
Tony.
Good morning, K-Mud listeners.
Good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, it was driving through snow, and snow was definitely thick this morning. Luckily, we made it to the studio.
Yes, glad to be here in studio. Thank you, Javi.
And Sam, I'll go ahead and hand it off to you. You can introduce our guest today, and we're really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. We are delighted to be speaking with Keith Mitchell, former NFL All-Pro star, celebrity yogi, mindfulness pioneer, thought leader, and author of The Mindfulness Mastery Playbook. Please welcome to the show, Keith Mitchell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Sam. I really appreciate that. It's a privilege being a part of Chi Talks, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Keith. I've really been enjoying reading your book. When did you come up with the idea to put these thoughts on paper?
After kind of being in the industry and having the privilege to work with so many different people across the world, I just wanted to put a strategy in place that we could have for, you speak a lot about philosophy, but just a strategy in place for things to do immediately, things to initiate, to get back the results that we're actually looking for.
Excellent. So when did you first begin writing it, and was it published recently?
Yeah, we published in September. I had the notion to write it a couple of years ago. Again, all this stuff is new for me. I never thought in a million years I'd be writing a book, but it was just in my head, and I had to get it out. And so the process was a journey in itself, but we were able to stay committed and get it done. So it's just been to see the response of people who've read it and are reading it. It's been just a really great experience to feel that.
Good morning, Keith. This is Tony here, one of the co-hosts in the studio at KMUD. I totally looking forward to hearing your story. And like most of our listeners, we are meeting you for the first time. Can you please describe how the events that kind of shaped your life and led you to writing this book?
Growing up as a kid in Texas, I had this notion that was so far out. I wasn't even playing the game at the time. My parents wouldn't let me play, and I tapped into something magical. A lot of people refer to as manifesting, and in the sense of also answering and problem solving questions. And so a teacher asked me, what do you see yourself in 5 years? And I really thought about the question. And not only did I think about the question, I also started putting actions in place to solve the problem. And so it put me on a journey of sports. I mean, in Texas is such a culture in itself, when you talk about football. And so to the manifesting thing, I put it into the intention. You can call it the universe, you can call it God, whatever the highest power you prescribe to. And I put it out to say, I wanted every school in the country to recruit me to play the game. And I wasn't even playing the game yet. That's the funniest thing about that. But I put the effort, the time, the work in to facilitate just that. And it led me through the journey of the National Football League to be all pro at the position I played, which is a linebacker. And how the book came about is my 8th year. So I played 6 years in New Orleans, a year in Houston, and then a year in Jacksonville. And so in Jacksonville is where my life just took a twist. I was making a tackle I had made a million times in my life. And on this particular play, I go and tackle the guy, and I wind up on my back, and I can't move. And I'm in this position. It's the most vulnerable position, I'm telling you, to be in what we call in yoga Shavasana, to be in Shavasana in a point. I didn't even know what Shavasana was in front of millions of people. It was a humbling experience. It was an experience that really reshaped my life. And I was diagnosed with a spinal contusion, and I was in that victim state. And I had to come out of that victim state, or I chose to come out of that victim state.
Wow.
And so my journey coming out of that and understanding and developing and what's landed me to the point I am now is what I put into this book.
Wow. So you got, well, that's intense, brother. I'm so glad I'm so glad you surmounted all of this, and now you're with us to share your knowledge and your expertise. So what's your intention or desired impact you hold for the readers with the book?
Well, interesting enough, what I realized from living life as long as I've been here, we're going to go through things. We're going to go through trauma. Mm-hmm. A lot of the trauma stunts our ability to grow and develop after the trauma, I call it a happening. And we don't know what to do. We prescribe to it. We get addicted to it even. We get stuck in the victim state. And so for those who are out there who've gone through things, aspiring to be more than they feel they are now, it's for that listener. It's for that person. Mm-hmm. And because I'm really convinced if I can do it, you can do it. And I believe the human potential has that. And I want to, again, compound on so many other teachers who've came before me to speak some of that same thing. I'm just sharing a little bit from my perspective, and maybe you can relate to that as well. So,
may it be so, brother.
Yeah, Keith, you describe the injury event in your book as a happening. Is this a term that came to you, or was it offered by one of your teachers?
It's actually something that from, my learnings, my being in the space of just analyzing, reflecting, is something that I kind of came up with. And it's ways that we can create space. A lot of times we talk about space in our community, creating space around a thing. And what I mean by that, when we go through something, it's so easy for us to attach to it. And in some cases, we get addicted to being attached to the things that we've gone through. Mm-hmm. And so I'm creating space. So when we get space, we can actually begin the process of stepping away and healing. It's not that we don't acknowledge the thing happened, or, there's no moral concept that this was bad and poor me and why me. But it's the idea that this thing happened, I was a part of it, but it's not me. And it's not going to define the rest of my existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a Reiki practitioner and Reiki master and teacher, that's one of the things that I teach my students is when you're sending distance Reiki to a moment of trauma or extreme pain, to put yourself in observer mode. Would you see that as being kind of the same thing as describing things as happenings?
Definitely. The observer actually is one of my strategies in showcasing the importance of being the observer. And it's so funny, I use the question, what is the difference between observing and judgment? And the reason why I use that analysis, because it's to reflect on the fact that words carry weight, they carry energy. And a lot of the weight of the words are negative, or we perceive it as negative. But we can redefine the concepts and claim back this real estate, I call it, in the words we use and how we speak to ourselves. So interesting enough, because reflection comes in that, observation comes in that meditation, I'm suggesting. It's kind of like when we were in sports, we would play the tape and we could roll back the tape and see if we were making errors or we were doing it right or doing it wrong. And meditation or the practice of contemplation is to break down our existence and assess where we can be better and where we've fallen short.
Wow. Yeah, that's what they refer to in the yogic tradition as the sakshat, which is the witness. You're talking about the observer, just sits there and witnesses what's going on without any reaction and just taking inventory of thoughts. And beautiful. And in your book, the Mindfulness Mastery Playbook, you touch on the method known as neuro-linguistic programming. It's like,
yes.
If you don't mind, just please give us a little bit of briefly on, so we can swim with you in that idea.
Yeah, NLP is a very interesting concept, and a lot of it's so interesting. They were using NLP mostly for salespeople. From salespeople and actually dating. It's like you're convincing someone, or it's the power of persuasion, if you will. But it's interesting enough to use the technology in a more constructive way of realizing that relationship and cultivating that relationship with us personally. And it's the context of how we use words, what we mean by what we say, and how we receive the information coming in. And so it's a very interesting, I call it a technology even, to use, to implement, to understand how we're affected by the words we speak and the words we speak to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, many times in conversation, I notice that it's all of those nonverbal cues and the energy behind what someone is saying that I'm picking up on as an energy practitioner. For me, that speaks more than the words coming out. Would you agree with that in your daily interactions?
Interesting enough, I say for a lot of people, unfortunately, physically, we've kind of checked out in a reference to how we speak with our bodies. And so most of the world is residing in the wordplay. And so understanding the context of how we use words is how we ultimately begin to solve problems. I do relate to what you're saying, because 80% of our communication is nonverbal, is with body language. But the words are very interesting, because words dictate to the person that you're integrating to or speaking to whether they're going to listen to you or not. So
right, whether they're shut down or really, brought in by the words that you're saying and the energy behind the words of what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not to mention that most people, as you speak to them, they are running their own scenario in their head, and they hear what they want to hear within their own context. So there's a lot that language offers that is definitely not capitalized on, and clarity is possibly the one thing most of us miss in this world,
I just want to jump in here, folks. It is 9:15. You've got it tuned to the mud. This is Chi Talks with Javi, Tony, and Sam, and we have our guest today, Keith Mitchell, talking about healing from traumatic injury as a professional NFL player.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Keith. Your book also links the methodology of NLP with the practice of what is referred to as the timeline meditation. Can you outline the practice of timeline meditation for our listeners and its benefits?
Yeah, beautiful. Timeline is very interesting, because all this is working with your mind. And the openness, when we talk about I want to be open, well, open resides in our minds. And the minds is where our potential resides, and it's also where our ceilings, our glass ceilings kind of reside also. And so by having mind practices, we build a stamina. We build an opportunity to begin to expand through our conditionings of how we've been indoctrinated with ideas and beliefs. And we get to kind of put all that on the table and to assess my progression to my detriment, if you will. And so the timeline therapy, how we typically run it is, get the participant to identify 3 things that they have a belief about themselves that, is it true or is it false? And where did you get it from? And so with the mind and the timeline therapy, we go back to their adolescent state with their minds, and they go back and remember the place where they attached to the thing that was told to them, and they bought into it. And so when they go back into their adolescent state, as they are with the information they hold now, they get to mentor their younger self. They get to be the ones to heal and position their younger self to understand that, the experience you don't have to attach to this. This is not your truth. This is something that you didn't know, that you know now, but you didn't know then, you bought into. And so you get to forgive your younger self for accepting that. You get to forgive the people in the room where they exposed you to that thing. And then you get to move on with your life and go beyond that limitation that's been stuck with you for so long.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. As a Reiki practitioner and teacher, one of the methods of distance healing is to send Reiki to anywhere in time and space. And the majority of myself and my students will send Reiki back in time to events that they are needing to heal, correct, or remove the psychological blueprint from. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it's such an amazing method for healing because it starts in the mind, and so many things start in the mind.
And with the mind, if I can chime in on that, we attach to the senses. So we remember the colors that we saw, the smells that we referenced to, because we're attached to that it's like in our innate intelligence that we're born with. So we get to also ground to that, because those things are not just, ideas. It's something that we've embodied even. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm ugly. Whatever it may be, it's like we've attached to this thing, and we've been and have gone through things compounding on the trauma to our now existence. And so we got to go back and detox, in a sense, this energy that's holding us, that's within us. And so we go with the mind to release the body to be in our highest potential.
It requires a lot of courage to do that.
Yes, as it sounds like, this journey is not for the weak.
Right. God bless.
If I may, there's so much here. This is so rich and deep, and this is so interesting. You guys are speaking this language that myself and my partner have been really diving into in some Buddhist study, and you use the words of judgment, identity, and mind. And I can imagine, and I'm also from Texas too, so there's football, and then there's also Texas football, right? Which you which is a whole culture, which I'm familiar with too. And so as someone who's come out of Texas football, playing, with Houston and with Jacksonville, having that identity, and then going through the identity of being someone that's injured, going through the identity of being someone that's healing. What can you tell our listeners? What can you share about your journey and about this notion of identity, self, judgment of identity, a judgment of self? And a little bit of that wordplay and language that you've kind of discovered on your path.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Javi. The journey is like, in order, what I learned in yoga practice, because I also am a yoga teacher, to master standing, I must master falling. And we have to realize that in a lot of cases we've accepted a role, an idea, a concept, and we've lived this out, and we've never really given ourselves opportunities with other ideas or other potentials of what we can be. In a sense of even our beliefs, it had never even really solved all our problems. My teacher says until all the problems are solved, everything is up for discussion. It's like, so we get to expand. We don't get just to sample this thing. We get to sample other things, new ideas. Because again, we're here to grow and to learn. To stay in the space, the posture of learning. And I feel when we stop learning, we stay stagnant. And I begin to realize also, by staying stagnant, this is when dis-ease takes over the body. I call it dis-ease. And that's a process that's happening within us. And so we're here to learn, and through the processes of things we've experienced, we begin to help others pay our experience forward and helping them with ways that they can gain and go beyond.
Amazing. Love that.
Yeah, the thing that I really want to touch on here is that there's so many things that are within our own power. And that makes me want to go into some questions about the conscious breathing practice that came your way when you were injured and in the hospital. I can not even come close to imagine what that must have been like. Yeah. When you first encountered healing from your injury, was the practice of conscious breathing, did you have an initial built-in resistance to that idea or methodology, or were you able to incorporate that practice almost immediately?
I would say, fortunate for me, I didn't have an option to negotiate it.
Right.
And I feel like even in the Buddhist concept, we find enlightenment, when we're in those predicaments where we're almost about to die or we're gone. So it's like, for me, I had no other option, so I had to buy into it. It made so much sense. So to describe you conscious breathing, well, in the heart space, the lungs, they move naturally. They don't need your assistance. What gets stagnant is in the internal body of the liver, the kidneys, and intestines. So what happens is the emotional body enables us to stunt our abilities to process the moment, regulate our emotions, and move through it. So in the liver resides anger, in the kidneys resides fear, in the stomach resides worry. And so with diaphragm breathing, on the inhale, the diaphragm pushes down. On the inhale, on the exhale, it pushes up. So that cycle begins to be, to simulate a massage, if you will, a relaxation internally. So now I can process the moment and I can be present in it. And in presence, I'm not wavering to the left. I'm not wavering to the right. I'm like, this is my intention, and this is where I want to go. And so this is what happened for me when I learned conscious breathing, and it enabled me to be present in that moment. And my moment was, I'm going to be well.
Wow, how fabulous. Do you feel like you're fully healed, brother?
I feel pretty good. You know, I still work out. I'll be 52 in July. I'm having a great time in this space. I get to meet people like yourself and have conversations all over the place. I mean, I couldn't imagine. You know, I thought I was going to be going to the White House for a Super Bowl ring, but I was in the White House working and teaching yoga. Oh. I'm on the Hill in Congress teaching a yoga class to Republicans and Democrats. You know, it's like the concept is what they say it is, but we give the energy and life to the thing. Mm-hmm. We make it magical. And this is what I want humans to understand. We have this potential that we're sitting on. We bring the magic to the thing. We are the medicine. And this is the time, most important, we need to stand up and be that thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, because this kind of form of recovery is like really nothing short of a miracle. And I mean, you know, to get to come back from that and be a representative for health and healing on a very high scale, that's pretty remarkable. Did you while you're in that position and you were kind of getting yourself back together, did you encounter any metaphysical guides, angels, ancestors, anything that's from the invisible realm?
I'm sure. From ayahuasca to peyote, I went down that rabbit hole. From living in ashrams in India to Nepal, I mean, to studying the pyramids in Africa. Trust me, the ancestors were with me. So it was just guiding me in a sense. I just surrendered to it once I realized, like, wow, this is what I've been waiting on. It just felt like it was so natural, as it is right now, having the conversation with you. And I feel this is what not only myself here meant to do, is what you guys are meant to do. I feel this is what, and while we're here, you know, maybe Javi, you mentioned the Buddhist concept. It's like the interesting question is, what's life and what does it mean? You know, and I'm a big believer that we give the meaning to life. We go through problems, we overcome them, and we pay the experience forward to our fellow humans, the communities we come from, live in, and the people we meet.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that definitely resonates with a lot of the teachings that I've encountered and also pass on. Another of the Reiki practices that I do, as far as the timeline meditation, is also sending Reiki to my future self and asking my future self to send Reiki back to me here and now to kind of guide me to that future self. So it's almost like we become our own ancestors in order to align to, you know, choose our own adventure correctly. You know, like you had said, you had thought that you would be going to the White House for another purpose, but then your purpose, you know, became something entirely different. It makes me think that, you know, we don't always know what the future holds, and that just staying in the present moment and aligning with our heart and our mind, that can help to draw us into our future selves, and to be able to then guide ourselves into those choices.
Interesting enough, Sam, we don't have to know the future. We just be prepared. We have the resources and the tools for when the moment comes, I'm ready. Thought, speech, and action, I know what to do. I'm prepared. That the journey or the not knowing is the spice of life. It's the curiosity. It's the fun part of being here. That's the excitement. So we accumulate the tools as you're speaking about, Sam, and what you're doing, and that's so the moment I'm prepared in any moment, and I can be present to it, and I can stay in my intention. That's the beauty of this practice.
Well, it's one thing to be present; it's another thing to live in the future. I mean, I think partly most of our what we trip over is our expectations of what the future holds for us or what we're working towards, and then but you drop into the presence and you realize that wow, we're moving 1 foot at a time, and that is how we're going to get to the future.
This is Chi Talks with Javi, Tony, Sam, and we're delighted to have Keith Mitchell here today, author of the Mindfulness Mastery Playbook. And we want to invite you to call in with any questions you may have, 707-923-3911. And I feel like we have a Qigong brother here just talking about stagnation, talking about organs, talking about diaphragmatic breathing, talking about medicine. So one of the things that has come to in terms of like words, right? This concept of technology and trying to meet the world where it's at too, right? With this concept of what I would deem as ancient technology, and it talking about the future, a little bit of the fear of the unknown. We see that technology is rapidly advancing, and for me, I say in my mind, well, ancient technology already exists in ourselves, and we're walking around, and we are it, and it is in us, and we just need to tap into that. And unfortunately, that knowledge has been lost, or it's been maybe suppressed or kept from us. So I just love the fact that I think that you're bringing a voice, and you're giving voice to this ancient technology. And I think we feel like we have that job and the duty or the power also to continue to learn, interface with it, and share.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I believe the present moment is the best moment. Is why we've done all the work we've done for this moment right here. When people lose their minds, we're the ones that's been practicing to hold our minds and sustain and grow our minds. And so this is when, all the forces join together, as they say, and they come together and unite and make it happen. It may sound cheesy to some people, but I feel that that's appropriate in this moment, though. And we're speaking a language that we all can communicate with and understand and get on code with. So I hold to that.
Yeah, I refer to that as surrendering to the flow. As a surrender practitioner, people don't always understand what I mean by that. And, the idea behind that is having the universe or God come to me and through me so that I can be in the present moment, so that I can share my talents and gifts with those who, are listening, even if it's just sharing it with myself to be my own best company. That we have such a powerful place in ourselves, and to be able to share that so profoundly with others, it's very inspiring. I really have been enjoying reading this book, Keith. It's such an inspiration.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Like they say in Native American studies, they say there is no shore. So the moment you think you're in that river and you're trying to grab and try to get to the shore and there is no shore, that's where the battle is.
Yeah, and it's not easy. We're all feeling blessed, and I'm looking at the beautiful nature outside, and we drove in through the snow. We're on our healing paths. I've also felt like being at home, watching a program or listening to the radio, sometimes I don't feel like I'm at my best, or I'm not in a positive space, or I'm not in the present moment. And it's hard to hear and to feel that like discrepancy when you feel like you're kind of low and someone is positive and you feel like, gosh, I'm just not there right now. I want to be, and I'm glad you are, but that's not me. You know what I'm saying? It's not me right now.
Yeah, that's why it's good to be able to lean on each other and have those vibrations to infuse into ourselves so that we can try to neutralize and go up from there. Absolutely.
I agree.
We do have a caller. Shall we take our caller?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good morning. Javi, are you the one that at the end of this show you say embrace the woo? Is that you or is that somebody else?
That's me.
That's you. Okay, first I want you to briefly define what woo means. What is the woo? And please.
I really appreciate the question. Thank you so much. What is the woo? It's the awe-inspiring grand mystery that we just have a sense of. Sometimes we can touch it. Sometimes we can feel it. I just kind of spoke to that. It's like sometimes you're in a lull, or sometimes you're not in that headspace to feel like you're in joy or in gratitude of the grand mystery. And so the woo is that, and like Sam said, leaning on one another, or leaning on the technology, or going into yourself, leaning on the ancestors, or whatever you can to get either inside of yourself or outside of yourself to know that, if there's suffering, it's temporary. If there's gratitude, it's temporary. And there's something bigger and there's something bigger than us, and that we are a part of, at the grand mystery. And that's essentially what I call the woo. And I strive to embrace it, and so as to not to. Oops.
So is that something that's like,
go ahead,
not completely knowable, but you sense it, or?
I'd say yes.
To grasp when you say you.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, what is an angel, and have you ever seen one?
Anybody?
Wow. Well, that's a huge question, I would say.
You ask your friend. You asked him if he saw angels along his journey. He goes, "Oh, sure." So I'd sure like to know what one is, because I sure never seen one.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of them. Never saw one.
Yeah, definitely. I am willing to share a personal story of, with someone who, this person here speaking, I was brought up in the Catholic tradition. And so there was a lot of prayers that we...
Sorry. Go on.
There were a lot of prayers that we would say, and a couple of years ago, my husband and son and I were caught in a snowstorm, and we were just out having fun sledding, and then the way back to our house was blocked. And so luckily we had a couple chainsaws with us. And so my husband went out to clear the road so that we could continue forward and hopefully get home. And my Reiki guides, or my angel guides, said that it would be a good time for me to pray. And so the prayer that I almost always go to is the prayer to Saint Michael. And so, that's just in my roots and in my blood. And so I said the prayer to Saint Michael, the Archangel, to protect my husband while he was cutting this giant tree that was covered in snow, and just with the intention of healing and protecting him while he did that so we could get home. And my son and I both witnessed a blue light fall from the heavens directly behind where my husband was cutting the tree, On the opposite side of the tree, we witnessed a white orb come down from the heavens and standing on the other spot. As soon as I asked Henry, I said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" He's like, "Yes, Mom, I'm seeing that." And as soon as the tree was fallen and moved out of the way, both of them shot back up to heaven. And I said, thank you for strengthening my faith, for showing me something that I've always asked to see. And anytime I have any doubt that there is a spiritual realm of the woo, I just go back to that moment of how, they say, ask and you shall receive. Well, I had a moment where I physically saw that. And so did my 10-year-old son. So to have him as witness was incredible. And, now my story's out there. I don't think I've really shared that with many people.
Mm-hmm. Sounds personal, deeply personal.
Yeah.
I think perhaps it was your powerful intention to save your husband and protect him that evoked those kinds of protective kind of forces that we can't see or fully understand. But sometimes if we focus our own intention, we can move the energy in that direction. But I don't think some mystical, magical angel, as you say, came down as a light to do that for you. I think that was your own intention and your own energy.
That's definitely something that I've also contemplated as someone who sends Reiki to the future. Part of one of my future meditations is that I send Reiki to my light body as it is approaching the event horizon of a black hole. And that's a deeper process that we can go into later in another episode. But yeah, we are all light. We are all intention. And so, yeah, perhaps my future light body, time traveler angel that is me came back at that moment in time in order to protect the space. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the concept of angel, I hear about angels. It seems like kind of a myth. It's some kind of force or, some spirit that looks like a person with wings, and they're going to protect you from some awful thing. Even in the Bible, in the story of Abraham and Isaac, when God supposedly tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac and he takes him to the altar, he doesn't want to sacrifice him, but the idea is he's supposed to obey anything God says, not question it. And so he's just about ready to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. Well, it's not really his only son, but it's his only son with Sarah. And anyway, I thought, before I actually read the story and I'd heard about it, I thought that God told him, "Oh, no, you don't have to do it. I was just testing you." But then in the Bible it says an angel came with a message from God and said, "Don't do it." Now, I don't know what that angel looked like or sounded like or spoke whatever language they were speaking, but I would love to know what it's like to see and hear an angel tell me something. I have never experienced that.
Caller, thank you so much. I love this. I'm going to pass this on, invite our guest and Tony to speak on the matter.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You go, Keith. You go, brother.
Okay. Well,
save us from this predicament.
Well, I'll go back to the time when I had my injury. The morning was something so different. I had a different feeling about the morning. My father is a preacher. His father was a preacher. We have so many preachers in our family. And I came home, I was feeling so different than I ever felt that day. And my mother, sister were there in Jacksonville visiting me to come to the game. And so typically we stay in the hotel. And so before the game, so night before the game. So I came home because I was feeling a certain way. And I was with my mother talking to her, and I didn't at the time talk very much. But what I asked for, I was like, "Can we call Dad? Because I want him to say a prayer." I just felt I needed to have a prayer because I was feeling like a certain way that I never felt before a game. Mm-hmm. the irony of that to the irony of what happened later that day, maybe that was internally telling that something was going to happen. So I felt I needed a protection. And maybe that was the reason why I was able to like kind of heal from it instead of getting completely taken out in a sense.
Wow. I definitely can relate to that. I grew up in Beirut, Lebanon, and when I was 10, the war started, so I was conscripted in the local militia, and I was in combat from 10 years of age till 20, and I definitely survived some really major traumatic experiences and violent experiences. My sister Gladys, who's an incredibly devout, she's kind of got Jesus first thing on her mind from the moment she wakes up till the moment she goes to bed, and she says that angels were looking out for me. I mean, I don't doubt it. I mean, there are higher powers. The invisible is always present in our life, but at the same time, I experienced something really incredibly profound. And it was more energetic than it was a visual, because I personally see red most of the time. I mean, surviving being a child soldier, I work really, really hard to clear up my mind and go from red to white. But most of the time, it's I'm on guard, and in a loving way, but I'm still on guard. But I was during some of the combats, I would find myself in a position where I'm pulled away from the position that I'm in, pulled literally about a foot, and then within seconds there are projectiles coming through that wall, and that was an incredibly powerful moment, and it was a moment of stillness that I was witnessing just myself just being saved without my consent, be honest with you. And I attributed that maybe to vibration, maybe to, I'm a musician as well, so I was very tuned into vibrations. I attributed that moment to, as projectiles were basically during their flight time cutting through space, time, and causation, I would feel that energetic, and that energetic was coming at me faster than the speed of sound and was pushing me out of harm's way. And it happened multiple times. I would say maybe 5-6 times, at least when I was aware of. And sometimes I wasn't so lucky. I got shot a few times, but most of the time, I think the ones that were absolutely devastating, I escaped. So, I guess spirit tests us in a way, just enough for us to endure, so that we can be witnesses for those events. So.
Well, folks, if you're just tuning in, this is Chi Talks with Javi, Tony, Sam, and our guest today, Keith Mitchell, author of the Mindfulness Mastery Playbook. And I just want to thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing, and giving the opportunity to speak to the woo. And I want to bring in a caller that we have here.
Greetings. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Tony, to hear a little bit more about your teenage years. I think sometimes growing up in America, we don't really experience things like that as much. Appreciate that. I also appreciate Keith coming on the air as well. A few things kind of came up for me as you guys talked today. And, let's see, I was just kind of getting into exploring the spiritual body of my being in my 20s. And during that time, I was working at a physical therapy clinic as a physical therapy aide. And something that I saw time and time again is there's nothing like an injury that actually makes us stop, go within, and really be in our body more consciously and presently every moment. So often, growing up, I did lots of sports, and the only times I'd really be in my body is when I was doing sports. Other times when you say, well, if you weren't in your body, where were you? Probably in our minds. And then working with so many clients and then they have a major injury, all of a sudden, now that's all they can do is be in their body. And through, oftentimes I've noticed, physical trauma, we can be more attuned and be in our bodies on more of a regular basis instead of being in our minds or being in our emotional body. We kind of download that energy from our heads down into our body. And I guess I just wanted to, hear more reflection on that, if anyone has any more feedback about that.
Mm-hmm.
Keith?
I can definitely relate to that. I refer to it as we learn to push ourselves but not listen to ourselves.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that makes sense too. I think being present in the mind definitely is not being present in the body. And in qigong and in tai chi and bagua, there's a level of recognizing that as you're moving within your form or within the circle, and you start to get more into your mind, you start to feel yourself wavering, and you start to kind of not have your stepping and your footing be committed to the ground. And that's the first indication that we stepped out of the body. But I think unfortunately, we are living in the future, trying to continuously think what the next step ahead is going to be, and then we forget about the step that we are in at the moment. So, yeah.
And do you mind if I comment on that, Tony? Isn't it interesting when we're thinking about the future? Does that, in a sense, it almost means probably we're in our minds and we're not being present in our body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing, Keith, I wanted to bring up is that came up really strongly for me when you were sharing, especially in the beginning, was just related to someone close to me, my brother. He's very much into football, and just to have you write a book that's very spiritually based, coming from your lifestyle of being in professional sports, I'm like, gee, I think, I feel like my brother could start, getting into spirituality just from coming from your perspective, that your vantage point, because oftentimes, he just respects so highly people that are in professional sports that he really kind of misses the concept of spirituality that he could access within himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that because it's really what I did was kind of take the process of developing yourself to be an athlete, but develop yourself to be a whole human with the capacity to be an athlete, the capacity to be whatever you desire. But it's a developmental process, and it's allowance of that. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. No doubt. I mean, it's almost like, hearing you say that almost makes me feel like, was the reason why you were born to really be a spiritual athlete, or is that just a vehicle to get to where you are now?
Oh.
I'm glad we're all laughing.
It sounds like it. It feels like it, My grandmother says you're going to be a preacher. I believe you're going to be a preacher, but I think in a 2026 version, this is my way of doing it.
And one of the ways we communicate our truth, it's not always through speech or lecturing. One of the ways we can communicate our truth, which is really our heart, is through that throat, through the chakra that also goes out into our arm, writing it out.
It's true.
That's a form of preaching, is literally writing it out. I've heard that many a time. This is so mirroring, Javier, the concept of the dark night of the soul that we talked about on the Canada show in the beginning of the week on Monday. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like that path of enlightenment, when people are wanting to wake up to the other parts of our auric field, our spiritual body, not just our mental body, our physical body, and our mental body, and our emotional body, but there's also that spiritual body. And I think as we begin to wake up to that, and we're on, and we want to choose that enlightening path, I don't think you just go through one night of the dark soul. You go through many nights of the dark soul along your path to awakening.
Caller, thank you so much for joining the circle today. And I really feel like, we're coming together and having this sharing circle. And I want to thank you, and I really appreciate what you had to offer. And we do have another caller who'd like to join in. I'd love to get them in and then pass off the last word to our guest, Keith.
Peace be with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. And it's been a wonderful show to be participating in from the listening side. I wanted to speak when you gave your interpretation of the woo. It struck me one of the most profound aspects of me studying what is called the concordance. It's like the true interpretation of words that are in the Bible. And I delved into it just briefly, but one of the most profound things was where it says to fear God. The original translation, it says it hundreds of times in the Bible. The original translation was to be awe-inspired by. Mm-hmm. And so when you first spoke about the woo being the awe, the to be held in awe, I just right away was like, to be awe-inspired by it. And it's just such a different... flip it on end, as compared to fear. And, like when you watch a beautiful sunset, you're just awe-inspired. You're held in that moment of just feeling pure grace. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that as to add to your interpretation there. And because so many people go, the woo, But, and again, it's just like being woke. It isn't a negative connotation. And the other aspect I want to speak to is, yes, angels are real. I've experienced them, seen them, and forever changed my life. So I'll let you go. Keep it brief because I know it's the end of the hour approaching. And so good day to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we're getting to the top of the hour here. I want to give the last word to our guest, and I just want to briefly say and just offer the notion and the idea when we look at each other and we see ourselves walking around in these earth suits. It reminds me of Marshall Rosenberg, and he says it's not our darkness that scares us the most, but it's our light. And I've been really meditating on that for some years because I feel like the meaning of that is still coming into my awareness, and going back to the concept of injury and being embodied, and possibly the opportunity that injury can pose to us in terms of finding our light. And when we find our light and we find a sense of power, that can be also scary too, because now you have a sense of agency, responsibility, and possibly duty, which gives you more weight. It's that power that you can hold, possess, and even walk through the world with. And that can be hard for people to hold and have, and if you don't have that some grounding possibly. But this is kind of thought that's coming to me. Keith, we have a minute here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, the beauty of that, Javi, is that how can we bring this heaven down to earth is what I get. When you have the context of God, well, how does God apply to you? I describe it as the generator, operator, and destroyer. I believe there's a higher power, but how does a higher power exist in me? I walk different. I talk different. I have a confidence. When it's something that I want, I go get it. I speak a certain way. It's going to move you, and you're just present a certain way because you have that force backing you. And if you don't, you have to consider why. You have to really check in and see why, and why am I not dialed into that thing? Because it's important. And like that light is within us. But if we don't initiate that light, well, then it will never show. And so that's what I'm excited about, the journey, to hear what you have to say, Frankie, Sam, all, just this is beautiful to me. I really appreciate this experience today.
Come out and visit sometimes, brother. Would love having you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith. I hope to be able to spend more time with you, learning more and the enthusiasm that is coming through, and theos, through God, and just the power of the words that we share and speak. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us.
Mm-hmm.
How can folks follow your work?
Oh, yes. My website is thekeithmitchell.com. Instagram, socials, all the same, thekeithmitchell. Please check in Amazon. You can get the book, the Mindfulness Mastery Playbook. Tune into it. Let me know what you think about it. We're going to have an Audible come out soon. So, yes, I hope.
K-Mud family, thanks for joining us today. Talking Qi, talkingqi@gmail.com, yinyangtaichi.org, TonyKhalifeMusic.com, myhumbledabode.com. Yes, thank you for coming in again, and really appreciate all of your contributions. And remember, folks, embrace the woo. And
The woo is you.
The full.
May your chi flow smoothly.
Yes, thank you all.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Keith.
Thank you.